Denver debates how cold is cold enough to open shelters for people on the streets. RTD makes safety changes to the spot where 2 trains derailed. They still won't tell us and you why it keeps happening. Another candidate for Denver mayor tells you here first.
If you are sitting there and I'm sitting here, that probably means that you are running for Denver mayor.
That does turn out to be true.
And Colorado's hard choices about how to use water will certainly impact farmers, along with everyone who eats food. That appears to be most of us, so let's talk about it on Next.
It's going to snow tomorrow. You probably do not need 3 minutes explaining that to you. But whether or not Denver opens a place for people to get out of that kind of cold, that has a much more widespread impact. Does it matter if it's 32 degrees cold or 10 degrees cold? What if it's 4 inches of snow or 6 inches of snow? That distinction used to matter to the city of Denver, which until today limited when it would open up its emergency warming shelters. Then some medical professionals called the city out. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
Denver rec centers like La Alma will open as an emergency warming center when temperatures get cold or significant snow is forecasted. But when is an emergency warming center needed? Even a presentation from the city today was not clear.
And in the cold, where temperatures are expected to be below 10 degrees, or 6 inches or more of snow forecasted.
The thing is, that's wrong. As you're about to see, the city says that's not really the threshold anymore to open an emergency warming center. That was revealed when Councilwoman Candy Baca asked if medical professionals helped determine those arbitrary numbers of 10 degrees or 6 inches of snow.
How did we get to those numbers? Who informed that?
I'll just remind that shelters for folks experiencing homelessness are available every day of the year, regardless of the weather.
Angie Nelson, the Deputy Director of Housing Stability, then turned the presentation over to Greg Thomas from Denver's Department of Public Health.
We've modified those criteria as of this morning to factor in not only the overnight low temperature, which is 10 degrees, but also the daytime high temperature, because if it doesn't rebound very much, you're cold all the time.
Tomorrow's forecast in Denver is in the 20s, but that's early in the morning, and maybe 6 inches of snow. Under the criteria council was shown in the presentation, warming centers would not open based on the temperature, but maybe the snow. Doesn't matter, since those criteria are being thrown out the window.
If it snows 4 inches, that's probably not that much better than if it snows 6 inches. So I think this is a work in progress, I guess is my answer.
To somebody who is unsheltered and staying on the streets, cold is cold and wet is wet.
Dr. Sarah Axelrath is a street medicine physician and is already seeing cold-related medical issues ahead of really cold and snowy weather.
We are already starting to see cases of frostbite. I treated one in clinic today.
We would definitely welcome anybody initially.
Stephen Henkel is with the Denver Rescue Mission, which is open for shelter overnight regardless of temperature, but can only accept so many, a couple hundred.
It's not even worth talking about what temperatures. If it's cold outside, it's cold outside.
These are two issues: overnight shelters like the Denver Rescue Mission and daytime warming centers, or in the summer cooling centers. That's the issue that doctors brought to council and council brought to the city, which resulted in a change on the fly. So if I was a betting man, like we bet suits from time to time, sure, I would bet that maybe rec centers will be open tomorrow for warmth.
Tomorrow already. I think we tend to think of folks who are living on the streets when we think of these warming centers. That's not all the folks who use them.
Right. Candy Baca, the councilwoman, brought up that if you use public transportation, maybe you're waiting for the bus for 45 minutes and you just don't want to stand in the cold and there's a rec center nearby, you can go in for warmth. You're picking up your kids and you walk to and from home, but it's 30, 45, like you can go somewhere warm. And it shouldn't be isolated to think like this is only for people who don't have a home. This could be utilized by more.
Yeah, open to all is open to all. Marshall, thank you. There are 17 people running for Denver mayor. And if you're like, hold up, that's more than yesterday. You're right. It's a crowded field going into the April election, where 2 candidates are likely to end up in a runoff. 3 well-known candidates have announced their campaigns to you first here on Next. Meet the 4th. Former State Senator Mike Johnson, if you are sitting there and I am sitting here, that probably means that you are running for Denver mayor.
That does turn out to be true. That is why I'm here.
Let's talk about one area where you think that Denver needs a pretty drastic change in approach.
Yeah, I think one area we need a drastic change in approach is what we're doing around the issues with homelessness. I've had the chance to work over the last 3 years as the head of a foundation here, and we focus entirely on helping families and kids get access to opportunity. And one of the things we spent a lot of time on is homelessness and housing. And we ran a pilot where we worked with the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless to be able to provide permanent supportive housing for folks to get off the streets and into housing. And 86% of those folks a year later were actually in housing and stayed there. What you do is you want to create a sense of community in small villages. So what you do is you take a half acre and you can put 40 or 60 tiny homes on a spot like that. Those are only $20,000 or so a piece. And what's important is you're also then moving people with a sense of community. Right now, folks that are unhoused, that is often the only community they have. So if you're going to come and try to pull one person out of that community and move them, they're very unlikely to go. When you can come and move an entire block of 20 or 30 people to a new neighborhood that has running water, has electricity, has housing, has addiction support services and mental health and workforce training, that is a real strategy.
As the voters of Denver look at you, listen to your ideas, what do you say to voters who might think, like this Mike Johnson guy, straight white guy, grew up in Vail, went to Yale, he's got a good paying job. What does he know about what my life is like, what my challenges are like?
I mean, I've spent my entire adult life serving Denver in different capacities over the last 30 years. In my 20s as a school principal, 30s as a state senator, with an office in the Holly in one of the neighborhoods that's been struggling more than anyone. There every day for folks to walk in the door and tell us what their challenges were and how we could resolve them. Whether it was as a principal serving communities of immigrants that were recent immigrants from Mexico or Guatemala, or fighting for dreamers to get access to college. I think I've spent my career shoulder to shoulder with people who feel like their voices are not heard in City Hall or in the places where decisions are made. And so I'm very proud of the fact that I've committed my life to that, and I'm very proud of the fact that there's a real diverse coalition of people around the city who would say they feel like I've been their voice in a very effective way.
Just a small portion of a far longer conversation with Mike Johnson today. You can see the full unedited interview with Mike Johnson and the other candidates running for Denver mayor on the next YouTube channel. So what are the odds? Last night, we tell you how the investigation into the repeated derailment of RTD trains is being kept secret, even from leaders in Aurora. They can't see the investigation, you can't see the investigation. And then boom, today, RTD says that part of the R line will soon reopen after months of being closed, and RTD is promising new safety measures there. We asked RTD to make the derailment investigation public, which is something that's not required under state law. Figured that people would want to know why exactly 2 trains have gone off the tracks at Sable and Exposition in 3 years' time. In September, several light rail cars derailed. That sent 3 people to the hospital. In 2019, an RTD report said a light rail operator driving 38 miles per hour in a 10-mile-per-hour zone caused a derailment that tossed a woman out of the car and severed her leg. RTD now says the service on that part of the line is ready to resume the week of November 28th. But now operators will have to stop before they go to the intersection, and the speed limit on the approach will drop from 35 to 25 miles per hour. Since we still don't know the cause of this year's derailment, remember, secret report, we asked RTD's general manager if it was speed again.
I'm certain you've seen the video, and one could deduce that could have been a causal factor. We, as an agency, basically are taking steps in reference to ensuring that our light rail operators are adhering to safety protocols in reference to service delivery on light rail and adhering to speed limits as specified, and are being very diligent in that effort and having a retraining to ensure that folks are adhering to the standards that we have outlined.
Again, one could deduce the cause of the derailment, but we would rather just know what the expert investigators found. Regulators at Colorado's Public Utilities Commission are still reviewing RTD safety plans, and they're also now looking at bipartisan calls from Aurora's leaders to release that report. All this month, Your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaigns are teaming up with our annual 9 Cares Colorado Shares food drive to fight hunger in our community. What do you say we pick up the cost of Thanksgiving dinner for some families? Maybe like a whole neighborhood worth of families. This week's Word of Thanks campaign supports the Thanksgiving Dinner Project and the other food insecurity work of the nonprofit Greater Park Hill Community. They feed their neighborhood and beyond. This nonprofit delivers hundreds of Thanksgiving meal boxes to places where they know they're going to be needed in Northeast Denver, to schools, to low-income apartment complexes, to families that have a pre-existing relationship with their food bank, because they do more than Thanksgiving when it comes to fighting hunger. Their volunteer-run food pantry has distributed nearly 10,000 meals this year. They run a free farm stand with fresh produce in the growing months. They have a weekend food program for students who rely on the meals they get at school. The folks at the Greater Park Hill community were thrilled when I said that I thought I knew some people who might be willing to cover the cost of their Thanksgiving food program this year. But I also know you, and I know what we've accomplished together through your generous Word of Thanks donation. So I am guessing that together we can more than pick up the tab for Thanksgiving. I think we're also going to be able to help Greater Park Hill's food pantry meet its goal for next year. So right now, families are only allowed to come in 18 times a year. The food pantry would like to have the ability to make that 24 visits a year so that families could come in twice a month and get food to feed their families. That way people aren't turned away for coming in too often. Scan the QR code on your screen to get the link to donate, or you can always find it on the next section of 9news.com or on any of our social media accounts. You've proven that $5 donations add up, so as always, I will match the first 50 of you who donate $5. When we all sit down to Thanksgiving dinner, we'll know that we helped another family set the table at their house. That'll be pretty special.
Colorado doesn't have a lot of good options to cut water usage, so the experts on this are looking at one industry in particular.
Agriculture uses most of the water.
What drier years ahead could look like for Colorado's farmers. Next.
Today we're exploring the impact of Colorado's water shortage through agriculture. When water experts started forecasting our future water supply, they also foresaw pain for agriculture. Our Anusha Roy looks at the impact.
In 28 years, if not enough is done, researchers think the stress on the water supply will intensify to the point that the economic fallout will be in the billions. Data from the Colorado Water Plan projects economic output could drop by a minimum of $53 billion if future needs in the state are not met in 2050. Employment could be reduced by 355,000, and state and local tax revenues could drop off a minimum of $3.4 billion.
Agriculture uses most of the water,
which is why that's the industry we're focusing on today.
They're almost always short of water just because of the variability in our supplies ever since we started as a state.
The researchers we talked to are water experts with the Common Sense Institute.
And in the Rio Grande basin, a very productive agricultural area, but unfortunately they are using more water than it can sustain. So they're going to have to reduce 20 to 25% of the farms there so that the remaining 70 or 75% can survive.
A few things are at play. Of course, there's climate change, stressed supplies, and more people living in Colorado.
This danger of farms being bought up.
Jennifer Gimbel is talking about new construction encroaching on farmland and cities buying water rights to support growing populations.
Especially the South Platte from within, let's say, 50 to 100 miles of the metropolitan Front Range, we could be losing 30% of our agricultural water supplies.
And in 3 to 5 years, I suspect that we will have, as I said, more influx of population.
MSU Denver economics professor Kishore Kulkarni also said as other states face drought, more people may move to Colorado in search of more opportunities.
How we are going to feed these unemployed folks, how we are going to give them a water supply, electric supply,
as well as food prices.
There are communities that are established around this business.
So things are being done right now to try and avoid this. The key is that there has to be enough progress. So what is encouraging are cities are really helping people be smarter about their water use and using vegetation from Colorado for their landscaping. All of that makes a really big difference because it ends up taking the pressure off of cities trying to buy up those agricultural water rights, Kyle.
So that's what is working in terms of stuff that's not particularly moving the needle?
Yeah, I mean, they'd like to see more sharing in Colorado. The experts were basically saying if one city has more water, it would be great if they'd share it with another part of Colorado that doesn't. Some of it's happening right now, but they would like to see more of that.
All right, Nusha, thank you.
And we are expecting another round of snow to push in tomorrow, lasting through early Friday. In the meantime, we get a brief quiet break. Still very cold, though. 33 degrees right now at DIA, where it feels like 28 because of winds coming in from the northeast at around 6 miles per hour. But as you take a look at our HD Doppler radar, we're going to continue to watch for this cold front to push down from the north, and that's what's going to bring all of that snow and even colder weather. Right now, not a whole lot going on. We just have some light cloud cover pushing through, but those clouds will increase as we go through the rest of the evening, and we'll continue to watch for that snow to build in the early morning hours, lasting throughout the rest of the day tomorrow. We'll have a lot of consistent snowfall here in Denver, giving us around 3 to 6 inches of snowfall in Denver, Castle Rock, Byers, the western suburbs of Denver, and southern Front Range foothills. We'll see 4 to 10 inches of snow expected, with those winds gusting up to around 35 miles per hour in other areas. And then to the south, northern El Paso County, Monument Ridge, Rampart Range. Below 7,500 feet, we're going to see maybe 1 to 3 inches of snowfall there, but a good portion of the high country and Front Range will be under those winter weather advisories tomorrow. Tonight, in the meantime, increasing cloud cover, very cold with those lows near 19 degrees. And we're going to see cold weather stick around Thursday and Friday before it starts to rebound over the weekend.
A bunch of workers in Denver are getting a pay raise next year. We're taking a closer look at who will benefit from a minimum wage hike. And I was thinking, if I picked up the cost of a Thanksgiving dinner for a family or two, maybe you would be willing to do the same. Add a few hundred of us, and all of a sudden we have provided Thanksgiving for a whole neighborhood. Let's do it. Next. If you make the minimum wage in Denver, congratulations on your upcoming raise. There's a chance your boss hasn't told you about it. There's also a chance you're confused about the details, because I was confused about the details when I talked about it the other day. Denver's minimum wage goes up at the beginning of each year, and the increases are based on the Consumer Price Index. Next year, Denver's minimum wage will increase from $15.87 an hour to $17.29 an hour. If you work within the city and county limits of Denver, you should see that bump in pay. For employers unsure of whether they have to pay more, Denver Auditor's Office directs them to check their taxes.
We do find some of our most common high-risk areas of underpayments are along Denver's borders, because employers may mistakenly believe they are inside or outside of the boundaries of the city and county of Denver. Employers can also check things like their taxes, if they're paying Denver taxes, if they're paying the occupational privilege tax for their employee. That's a good sign that they're probably working in Denver.
One exception to this rule: for tipped workers like servers or bartenders, minimum wage is going up to $14.27 an hour, so long as that plus tips comes out to be $17.29 or more per hour. Back in a moment with our plan to pick up Thanksgiving dinner for a whole family of whole neighborhood of families. That and your feedback next. We're going to sit down to Thanksgiving dinner with our families or friends or neighbors or some combination, and know that we also put Thanksgiving dinner on somebody else's table because of what you are doing with this week's Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign. We're picking up the tab for the nonprofit Greater Park Hill Community's annual Thanksgiving dinner distribution in Denver. Scan the QR code on your screen to join me in donating, or find that link on the next section of 9news.com or on any of our next social media accounts. I am pretty sure, knowing you, that we're going to do more than just cover the cost of Thanksgiving dinner. I am going to guess that we will also expand that nonprofit's other food efforts year-round. They want to make it so that families can stop in more often, families that they're having to turn away who have additional needs. Feedback tonight. Sarah writes in with something that we have not covered on this program, but I got a bunch of people asking about this. Hey, Kyle, so if former President Donald Trump never conceded the election in 2020, wouldn't that mean he is term restricted and can't run in 2024? I don't know. Do we really want to get into arguments about the minutia of constitutional law with a guy who attempted to overthrow American democracy to stay in power? Like, something tells me that that is not exactly the ground that anybody wants to be on. I don't know. Just saying. See you next time.